Hi friends, welcome to another fascinating episode of Vedshaala. In today's episode, we would like to dig deep into the ancient culture of India. दोस्तों आप सबने सुना होगा या पढ़ा होगा, भारतवर्ष को एक समय में कभी सोने की चिड़िया भी कहा जाता था। मेरे हिसाब से सोने की चिड़िया कहने के पीछे सोने का लिटरल मीनिंग के साथ साथ उसके और भी कई मायने हैं। जो हमारे पूर्वजों को नॉलेज थी या जो हमारे पूर्वजों का एंशिएंट कल्चर था, that is also something which refers to that सोना. So सोना केवल लिटरल मायने में नहीं, सोना ऑब्वियसली और भी बहुत सारी चीजें हैं जिसको रिफर करता था. तो इन्हीं सब चीजों के बारे में बात करने के लिए आज हमारे साथ है एक बहुत ही चार्मिंग पर्सनालिटी जिन्होंने अपने पूरे कैरियर के 40 साल के स्पैन में काफी इंस्टीट्यूशंस में काम किया है, जिसमें मेजॉरिटी इज आर्कियोलॉजिकल सर्वे ऑफ इंडिया एंड नेशनल म्यूजियम. राइट नाउ ही इज वर्किंग एज डायरेक्टर जनरल नेशनल म्यूजियम ऑफ इंडिया. It's my absolute honor and privilege to welcome Sir B.R. Mani at our Vedshaala episode. Sir, I welcome you.
Thank you so much.
Sir, to start with, you have been part of so many excavation sites. But one excavation site comes to my mind, which is the most controversial and the disputed site. So would you like to tell me more about it? How was your experience? What challenges did you face?
The disputed site of Ayodhya, which is Ranjan Bhumi, and where the temple is being constructed now, that job was very tedious and challenging because of so many things involved in it. It was only on the instructions of the Honorable High Court Lucknow bench that Archaeological Survey of India had to take up this excavation, and that too for some limited purpose, because to settle the long pending issue, it was required to find out whether the mosque was constructed on plain surface or over any earlier existing structure. So initially the GPR survey was done there, and then court ordered for truthing that, and excavations were ordered. So I was lucky to lead the team in March 2003, and I finally submitted my report in August, 21st August, in all relevant details about the excavation techniques which we followed, the antiquities which we recovered, and the scientific studies and dating of the site. So that was a quite challenging task, and that too on the instructions of the court, in the presence of 2 additional judges of the court remaining there at the site throughout, and more than 20 parties of the case who also were available at the site throughout the day. So we completed in 5 months and then submitted the report in the next 15 days.
Achha, right now you mentioned कि it was due to the order of the court, honorable court, and right now you mentioned it was for in a very limited sense, limited area, limited depth and everything. So how difficult is it for you as a head of Archaeological Survey of India to do justice to your job when it is limited?
Yeah, actually the area was limited to 2.77 acres of land which was under dispute. And earlier excavations had taken place in the outskirts. So we knew about the cultural sequence of the site, although not exactly at the center of the site where the excavation was ordered by the High Court. And it was definitely challenging that we continued to excavate at the site till we got the evidence of natural soil. And that was also questioned in the court, why you are digging so deep. And then I had to inform the court that it is the archaeological principle that in excavations, whenever we take up excavations of a site, we have to find out the natural soil, because there is a possibility that earlier material can be mixed up in the later phases. So the court was satisfied, and then accordingly we continued.
Acha sir, since we are at the sets of Vedshaala, and at Vedshaala, our whole concept, heart and soul is behind कि हम किसी भी तरीके से अपने यूथ को अपने एंशियंट कल्चर नॉलेज से जोड़ पाए, राइट? एंड वी एज अ चाइल्ड, हमें जब भी ये पढ़ाया जाता है कि ओके रामायण महाभारत and whatsoever, whosoever the personalities are there, may it be Lord Rama, may it be Hanumana, तो हमें ऐसा लगता है कि these are mythological characters, and कहीं ना कहीं हमारे दिमाग में ये आ जाता है कि these are fictitious characters, right? And it is not actual history. What is your take on it? Because you have dug deep into it, and you have done so many excavations. Do you find any relevance कि नहीं these things, these mythological characters actually existed and has some relevance to the history?
You know, Ramayana and Mahabharata, they are the two great epics of later Vedic era. They cannot be fictitious or just myth. Only thing that when they were codified, they were written, and centuries have passed after that. And there had been interpolations, missing pages of the manuscripts, and those interpolations were added later on. And that is how so many mythical things emerged. But the main story of both Ramayana and Mahabharata, it continued to be there in the minds of Indian nation. And not only that, there are hundreds and hundreds editions of the story of Ramayana. In India, also in Persian, also in Southeast Asia. And such popular historic events cannot be myth. So definitely the things took place. And these days, the astronomers are also trying to identify the period as per the astronomical observations and movements of stars and constellations. They are trying to fix the date of both Ramayana and Mahabharata and also of the Vedic period. There are so many things which were there in 6000 BC, and we only know about them. Those stars which were there in the sky, in the zenith, they are not visible today, but we get references of those stars. And those references, there are different softwares through which the dating, astronomical dating is done these days. And some of the stars, I would like to mention Ashwini Kumar, the morning star. It used to be visible in the dawn. For the last 8,000 years, it is not visible. So accordingly, the date of the Vedic period has been fixed to around 6000 BC, which is quite logical. And then there are different texts in which people have written about the movement of people from India to Gandhar, Gandhar to Persia, Persia to Ararat. And those things are available in our literature. It is not that the normal movement of people was from west to east, but nowadays it is quite established that there was movement from east to west as well.
Okay.
So there are so many new things which are confirmed by the archaeological, by the literary texts, traditions, and also astronomical observations. So archaeologically, we had been thinking that the earliest date or the beginning of the early historic period can be placed in around 600 BC. So everything started from 600 BC, evolution of coinage, writing system, the trade and commerce. But in excavations, we have found the dates going much earlier. So we cannot just ignore them. And if we take such things into consideration, definitely what today we think, or we have been forced to think through our textbooks in the colleges, we have come quite away from that. And no less than 1,000 or 1,500 years we have to add in what we think the beginning of early historic period. That shows that there is no dark age which was conceived by some of the Western scholars. So there is no dark age left. That has been proved by the archaeological investigations.
So, from point of view of archaeological survey of India, you are also saying that these scriptures, whether it is Ramayana or Mahabharata, they are not just stories.
No.
Rather, they existed in the past. Cool, interesting. Acha sir, you have been associated with archaeology since so long. Do you come across any such incidents of Ramayana or Mahabharata, which you can relate with your excavations during any time?
People have tried in the past also to correlate story of Mahabharata with actual happenings of Mahabharata, and that too through evidence of archaeology. But the latest researches, they now show that evidence which we get from tradition, also from epigraphy and from literature, taking back the history of Mahabharata to 3100 BC, that seems to be correct. Because earlier it was thought that the earliest Indian civilization goes back to 2750 BC. Now we have evidence that it goes back to 7000 BC. And it was not just, we can't say that it was Harappan or pre-Harappan or early Harappan. We have to relate it to some civilization which actually occurred. And that way, it is quite evident that in, say, 3000, 3100 BCE, we have evidence of beginning of the urbanization. And many of the things are now coming up through excavations. Like recently, some chariots have been found in the excavations, which the entire world doesn't have such early chariots. And we have in 2500 BC such chariots which have been found.
And we have been able to establish it, relate it, it has been during that period.
Yes, because of the scientific methods of dating, they have been dated. So in 3000 to 2000 BC, I mean, Mahabharata, period of Mahabharata may not be just to pinpoint
Correct.
any particular date of 3102 BC like that. But a span of 500, 600 years can be assigned to the period of the happenings of that Mahabharata. And now we have such evidences. Similar evidences may be searched for Ramayana. And since we have 7000 BC, that is 9000 years from the present, there may be the dates which astronomically comes to 5114 BC for Ramayana. So that can also someday prove to be correct.
Very interesting. अच्छा, what is your take on Ram Setu? I remember last time news में काफी चल रहा था कि Ram Setu, whether it has been actually established by Ram ji and Vanar Sena or not. What is your take on it?
ये बड़ा इंटरेस्टिंग सवाल आपने पूछा. एक्चुअली मैं तो ये कहूँगा कि एक डाइक फॉर्मेशन होता है.
Okay.
जियोलॉजिकल फॉर्मेशन है. वो डाइक फॉर्मेशन ऑलरेडी एग्जिस्ट करता है इन बिटवीन द Indian coast and Sri Lankan coast. And one can see that dike formation through satellite images also.
Correct.
We have references of 13th, 14th century AD that people were walking over this dike formation.
Oh.
So it's my personal opinion that water table might have been either low
Gone down.
at the time of Ramayana. And even if it was high, then what we hear that the Vanar Sena was making Ram Setu. So it is possible that they might have thrown stones and other material, sand, earth, etc., to fill up those gaps where depth was more. And since we have evidence of 14th century people walking from one coast to another coast, so that was something of that sort.
Okay.
And we cannot straightway say that there was no Ram Setu. But on the dike formation itself, which is no less than 8 kilometers wide, there are certain gaps. And the army of Ram might have filled up those gaps to cross over to Sri Lanka.
Okay.
So that seems to be a logical possibility.
Okay. Cool. Interesting. Acha, sir, what do you feel like? Can archaeology play an important role in making our youth aware about our ancient knowledge or culture?
We have previous experiences when not much of proper historical and archaeological evidences, they were formed to reconstruct the history of the nation. But now that we don't have any influence of any particular ideology or outside effect, we are in a better position to work and find out what is the truth. And these truths, they are coming day by day, pushing back so many dates, giving more information about the different periods of our history through archaeology, through diggings, and also through decipherment of earlier scripts, the inscriptions, and paleography.
Okay. फील्ड आर्कियोलॉजी, एपिग्राफी एंड न्यूमिस्मेटिक्स, थोड़ा सा इसके बारे में एक्सप्लेन करेंगे?
फील्ड आर्कियोलॉजी जब हम कहते हैं तो उसका मतलब ये हुआ कि जो हम खास तौर से एक्सप्लोरेशंस या एक्सकवेशंस करते हैं। एक्सप्लोरेशंस के भी अलग अलग प्रकार हैं और इनमें साइंटिफिक मेथड्स को यूज़ करना भी एक्सप्लोरेशन का एक प्रकार है, जिसमें लिडार सर्वे या जीपीआर सर्वे वगैरह शामिल हैं। और इसके अलावा जो मोस्ट इम्पॉर्टेंट फील्ड आर्कियोलॉजी का सब्जेक्ट है वो है एक्सकवेशंस, आर्कियोलॉजिकल एक्सकवेशंस और रिपोर्ट राइटिंग आफ्टर दैट। सो ये तो हुआ फील्ड आर्कियोलॉजी। इसके अलावा जो न्यूमिस्मेटिक्स है, न्यूमिस्मेटिक्स इज द हिस्ट्री ऑफ कॉइनेज। तो हमारे देश में कब से कॉइन्स बनने स्टार्ट हुए, उनकी मिंटिंग कैसे होती थी, उनमें क्या मेटल यूज़ किया गया और उनमें किस तरह के डेकोरेशंस या फिगर्स या इंस्क्रिप्शंस आते हैं, उनकी सारी स्टडी करना न्यूमिस्मेटिक्स में आता है। और एपिग्राफी इज द डिसिप्लिन वेयर द इंस्क्रिप्शंस आर स्टडीड। इंस्क्रिप्शंस को स्टडी करने के लिए पैलियोग्राफी की ज़रूरत है। पैलियोग्राफी जो स्क्रिप्ट जानते हैं वो पैलियोग्राफिस्ट कहे जाते हैं और वो इंस्क्रिप्शंस की स्टडी करते हैं। इंस्क्रिप्शंस पहले तो उसका ट्रांसलेशन होता है, फिर उसके बाद फर्दर स्टडी करके ये पता चलाते हैं कि इंस्क्रिप्शंस में किस तरह के दूसरे इनडायरेक्ट एविडेंसेस क्या आ रहे हैं। तो डायरेक्ट इनडायरेक्ट दोनों एविडेंसेस की स्टडी होती है।
ओके सर, आपसे बात करते करते मुझे बड़ा इंटरेस्ट आने लगा आर्कियोलॉजी में। मुझे लगता है मुझे भी पढ़ना चाहिए था आर्कियोलॉजी। व्हाट डू यू फील लाइक, शुड आर्कियोलॉजी बी आल्सो बी अ पार्ट ऑफ स्कूल करिकुलम?
आर्कियोलॉजी बहुत ज़्यादा एक डिसिप्लिन सब्जेक्ट है जिसमें टेक्निकलिटी बहुत अधिक है, लेकिन अगर हम शुरू से ही इन द हाई स्कूल इंटरमीडिएट क्लासेस वी इनकल्केट द फीलिंग अमंग्स द स्टूडेंट्स टू टेक अप दिस subject in their higher studies, that would be good. And at present भारत में जगह जगह आर्कियोलॉजी पढ़ाई जा रही है। कहीं वो साइंस के सब्जेक्ट के तौर पे भी है, कहीं आर्ट्स के उसमें है, कहीं वो एंशिएंट इंडियन हिस्ट्री के साथ कनेक्टेड है। तो बीए और एमए कोर्सेस में तो पढ़ाया जा रहा है, लेकिन जो आज ज़रूरत है वो टेक्स्ट बुक्स में सही क्या है, आर्कियोलॉजी कितनी इसमें आपकी मदद करती है और हम अपने सोर्सेज ऑफ हिस्ट्री को किस तरह से आर्कियोलॉजी के थ्रू जान सकते हैं, वो नॉलेज हमें टेक्स्ट बुक्स में देना बहुत ज़रूरी है।
सर मुझे तो एक्सकेवेशन के नाम से ही बड़ा एक्साइटमेंट होता है और आई स्टार्ट गेटिंग गूज़बम्स। सो आई वांट टू अंडरस्टैंड कि जब आप फर्स्ट टाइम ऑफ योर कैरियर एक्सकेवेशन के लिए गए थे किसी साइट पर, व्हाट वाज गोइंग थ्रू योर माइंड, व्हाट वाज योर फीलिंग, व्हाट वाज द एक्साइटमेंट गोइंग ऑन?
I just passed my MA and with the team of Banaras Hindu University, my professor was Professor K.K. Sinha, who was excavating a site called Kharadi in eastern UP. So he took me there and we stayed in a place which was not meant to be inhabited by people. It was a graveyard.
Oh.
And next day morning, we went to the trenches because the excavation was already in the progress. So we were astonished to see Professor Sinha when he was moving from one trench to another and asking people to excavate at this particular site. Now I can understand why he used to say in those days. But it was his knowledge which gave rise to his students to understand a particular site. And me also being a student of him could learn many of the intricacies of excavations. That was my first site.
So were you excited, feeling pressurized, or what?
I was definitely excited because we were only learning archaeology or ancient Indian history and culture in the university. And when we got to work in the field, it was a quite different experience.
ये कुछ हमारे जैसा ही है। मी बीइंग एन इलेक्ट्रिकल इंजीनियर, हमको सेकेंड ईयर में पढ़ाया जाता था ट्रांसफार्मर और मोटर, और ये जब तक वो टेक्स्ट बुक थे तब तक ठीक है। पहले दिन जब हम लोग लैब में गए तो फर्स्ट थिंग विच आई डिड वाज शॉर्ट सर्किट। तो ऐसा कुछ आपके साथ भी हुआ था?
नहीं, एग्जैक्टली ऐसा तो नहीं हुआ, लेकिन ये जरूर था कि जिन चीज़ों को हम एक्सकवेट करके ले आते थे और उनको कहते थे कि सर ये चीज़ उससे पहले मिल रही है, तो वो कहते थे कि एक बार जा करके वहाँ ऑब्जर्व करो। और ऑब्जर्वेशन के बाद अगर हमें समझ में नहीं आता था तो वो आकर के बताते थे कि ये देखो ये पिट है, और कोई भी ऑब्जेक्ट अगर नीचे चला गया, वो पिट जहां से सील हो रहा है उस लेवल का ऑब्जेक्ट है, ये नहीं है कि वो नीचे का या अर्ली पीरियड का ऑब्जेक्ट हो। तो इस तरह से बहुत सारी चीजें, गलतियां तो होती हैं शुरू में, लेकिन उन गलतियों से सीख करके
जी
फिर ही परफेक्शन आ सकता है।
करेक्ट। अच्छा, एक और चीज है, माय लास्ट क्वेश्चन वुड बी दिस ओनली, कि आई एम श्योर यू आपने बहुत सारी साइट्स एक्सकेवेट की होंगी। Which one site do you feel like is one thing which is the highlight of your career?
Definitely, I'll say it is Ayodhya. I have excavated 21 sites in the country in different areas. But to just mention about certain highlights of some of the sites which I like most. One is Sarnath. People had been excavating the site for last 200 years, and all the British scholars who had done work, and later on Indian scholars also, they believed that Sarnath started in the time of Ashok, and there was nothing before Ashok. So that was my objective, to understand whether after Buddha and before Ashok there is anything there or not. And we found remains of 385 BC, that is more than 100 years before Ashok. Similarly, there was in the 12th century a poet in Kashmir called Kalhan. He has written Rajtarangini. And in Rajtarangini, he says that 3 of the Turushk rulers, Turushk means Kushan rulers,
Okay.
had established cities on their own names, and one was Kanishk. So I was searching for the name. I found in Kashmir Valley near Baramulla, I found a site called Kanispur. And then after excavations, we could establish that it was founded during the time of Kushans.
Great.
So these are just couple of examples, but I like all the sites which I excavated. I excavated in Haryana a site where the coinage was produced.
Okay.
It was a mint of 10th, 11th century. So no mint was excavated ever. People knew because of crucibles and molds that how the coins were cast. But exact mint was never excavated, and that also I could excavate. So these are some of the sites and some of the highlights which I could.
Very interesting. थैंक यू सो मच सर, आपकी वजह से आज हमें इतना ब्यूटीफुल नेशनल म्यूजियम देखने को मिला, एंड थैंक्स फॉर शेयरिंग योर नॉलेज विद अस. थैंक यू.
Welcome.
And thanks to our audience as well. This is Sarit Agarwal signing off. See you next time again in a fresh new episode.